I run his meeting for him. So, yeah, Renette, you could come up. Are you coming by yourself or?
No, I'm coming up.
Okay. All right, so I'll just introduce the council. We have Councilor Hogan, Councilor Peniagua, and Councilor Schultz, and myself, Councilor Allen. Renette, if you could introduce yourself and your colleague, that would be great. Sideways. Coming over.
I see Councilor Green running in. Okay. Councilor Green was running, but
Oh, he's probably going to get his book.
okay. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Raynette Relaford. I am the administrator for the Citizens Review Board. To my left is Lori Nielsen. She is the board chair, and we have other board members in the audience today, along with our trusted community member who supports us all the time as well. So first, we would like to thank the council for the time and attention to the CRB budget this year. And for the benefit of the new counselors, I wanted to just do a little bit of an overview as to the importance and the effectiveness of the CRB, and then try to get to some budgetary concerns we are facing that I hope to address. As we are all aware, a discussion of reducing and preventing incidents of excessive force by police has become an issue nationwide. Over the past decades, the debate on police reform has intensified. Civilian oversight provided by the Citizens Review Board provides fair and impartial policing because its process is by non-police community members, volunteers that can provide input to the department and its operations. We live in an age where there is an increasing amount of distrust in the community, particularly among people of color, that the police use an inappropriate amount of force, treat racial and ethnic groups equally, or hold police accountable. So this makes the community less confident in the police and less willing to cooperate with them. By increasing the confidence of the police in the police, the CRB helps to increase and improve public cooperation and make communities feel safer to everyone. However, the keys to the success of the CRB is its independence from the police department and its lack of political interference. This provides unbiased review of cases and the authority to recommend discipline on officers when the board finds it appropriate. But equally important is the board has sufficient resources of funding and manpower to effectively oversee the department's activities. And that is where we are today. In no way is the CRB the complete solution to the complaints against the police, but we are here to hold the police accountable within our legislation and reduce instances of unnecessary use of force, combined with the diverse makeup of the current board, as you have been able to see, thanks to the counselors' appointments to the board this year and the mayor's office. We have been able to provide a variety of different people from different perspectives in order to have a well-rounded group of individuals reviewing cases. So combined with that diverse makeup and an increase in public safety and the renewal of the trust that we try to provide to the community, we come here seeking certain budgetary requirements. As we come out of the pandemic, hopefully, the number of cases we know will increase. There is an increasing number of walk-in cases for which currently I am the only full-time person in the office, as our legal secretary left while I was out on maternity leave. And so that position has increasingly been difficult to fulfill based upon the current salary amount and the amount of work that the two-person office has to complete on a day-to-day basis. So, which will then in turn create a backlog in our processing of cases. So to succeed, the CRB needs the proper resources, which we put a little bit here in the budget. We were requesting 4 positions this year, but we only put in for 1 as instructed, and that was the data analysis, in hopes that the data analysis will continue to provide us with more detailed reports quarterly and annually, and special reports about the community concerns. The other positions, as you know, I requested last year, They were going to be the policy analyst, which was going to assist with me writing the recommendations to the police department for their policy and training. We also were requesting a community engagement specialist that would focus on assisting the board in community engagement and scheduling those and making sure that the board has the proper resources to do effective outreach to the community. So here we are. By making some of the changes we are requesting, the CRB is going to be more effective, which helps protect the rights of all parties, which will restore the trust in the community. I want to say that to some people, the numbers that you see may just be numbers on paper, but we see it as an opportunity to continue to reach out to our community to provide them with the necessary information on the policies of the police department in ways in which they don't understand currently. So we would like to do more community outreach because we know that many people have a perception as to police policies, and that is not always correct, which in turn creates the need for complaints, but also creates the mistrust in the community. And I will stop there.
Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Good morning. I'm here to speak to the request for the additional staff for the Citizen Review Board. I think one of the misconceptions is that Raynette's job is just doing investigations. It's not the only responsibility that she has, even when there is another staff person in the office, and hopefully we'll be able to fill that position soon. She's got to review the complaints and complete the investigation, attend council meetings and study sessions whenever there are items of interest to the board, responds to all FOIL requests from the legal department, and I really can't believe how many FOIL requests come in from the legal department to the CRB, most of which need to have been given out back to them yesterday. So that takes a lot of time. Attend meeting with the mayor's office, police chief, and all committee meetings of the board. She also attends all ongoing training opportunities to learn what's going on in the areas of policing and police accountability, and also coordinates training of the board members. And here I'd like to say that, you know, since this administration and the new police chief, the communications and interactions between the Citizen Review Board and the police department and the council and the mayor's office has increased tremendously. We won't go into what happened in the past, but trust us when we say we're very happy with the way everyone is interacting with the review board now. During her time as administrator, Raynette has also done whatever she can to help add to the office at no cost to the city. We have currently and have had interns from Syracuse University. This one does have, the next one has a little cost to the city because we're hoping to get one of the summer interns from the summer internship program. And are currently working with an agency called Advancing Workforce Development for Mature Workers, something I've never heard of before, but they apparently re-enter seniors into the workforce that want to get back into the workforce that have not been, and we have 2 people who have shown interest in coming in the office and helping out with that.
Is this on a volunteer basis or they're paid?
No,
like part-time?
they get
agency
paid
pays
through the agency, so they're federally funded through the agency, so they get paid that way. So it's no budget cost to us, but we need them, and we need to have the space for them
Yeah. Now,
and the equipment.
unfortunately, you know, those are not the easiest things to deal with because they can't be in the office by themselves. They don't have the computer access. We don't have the computers to give, even if they had access. We only have one working computer right now. So there's a variety. If they can't have a key, so, you know, someone has to be in the office or they have to be let in by security. So there's a lot of things that go along with that, but giving them projects to do, just in put binders for new board members. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things. Answering the phone is critical at this point as well. Since we have no legal secretary, Raynette is doing all the things that have to be done in the office, including answering the phone. So, you know, that lessens the time that she can devote to doing investigations and stuff. While she was out on maternity leave this fall, I did cover what I could in the office. So I answered phones. I had some forwarded to me. Got complaint forms out, took complaints in, dealing with the mail and whatever other tasks I could. But I would encourage any of you to sit in that office for a couple hours and just see what goes on in the course of a day. You'd be amazed. The SBD has increased the number of staff in the Office of Professional Standards over the past few years. They now have 5.
We have 3 sergeants,
Uniform
1
staff.
lieutenant,
And 1
and 1 civilian.
allowing them the opportunity to complete investigations in a timely manner. So they do their investigation at the same time. You know, it's just, we both did the investigation on the complaints. While the additional funding for the Council for Private Investigators did help last year, they basically did what Raynette would have done had she not been on maternity leave as far as investigations go. So I urge you to give the request for additional staff for the CRB the attention it deserves and approve the new item in the budget.
So the only new position would be the data analysis.
Yes, I was going to put on all 4 again. The salary range would be the same as you see on there for the data analysis. So it would have increased the budget another $139,500. And we, I think we beat a dead horse last year as to the the budgetary constraints, although we have ARPA funding, but the need and how we would move forward. But I would encourage the council to look at that as a means to create the necessary resources the board needs, because we do need those necessary people, because all of this, we can, based upon what we have currently, the legislation that was written and approved by the council is not being fulfilled. It's being fulfilled as best as we can, but it's not doing what it's intended to do, and these positions would allow us to do that. So we did put in for the data analysis because I was advised to pick just 1 position and move forward with that one, and we could see if we could get that passed, because last year we were unable to get the 1 passed. We just received some funding for the private investigator. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Freeland Investigation Services for investigating cases while I was out on maternity leave. It was a great help to come back, and they do a thorough investigation for which the board can review. So you
you're
can
not going
see.
with them again this year?
We are going with them again, and that is the reason why their cost has gone up to $25,000. For the contract investigator, it's up to $20,000. Which is more than what we had before.
What line are you on?
I am looking at the,
Professional services?
yeah, under the professional services line, there is a line for a contract investigator.
Which is, we don't have that,
Yeah.
so.
Oh, okay. So this line is for, so that's why it went from the 23
To the 47.
to the 47, yes, because we are requesting an additional 20,000. I will tell you that I was sued this year. Well, it started last year. Personally sued because of the work that we do here at the CRB. And we had to utilize our outside counsel because there was a conflict with the law department, because the law department had to represent the city and the police officers that were also in that case. And so our outside counsel budget had to be increased as well to accommodate that, because we have already spent $7,000 just on the lawsuit. So I would be remiss if we didn't point that out as well.
And you were sued based on work that you did under the CRB?
Yes, because we were asked to stop the misconduct that the police department does, and that was part of the reason why they sued us. And as we know, the CRB itself cannot stop misconduct. So our attorney was able to write a motion to dismiss the case against us, and we were able to prevail in federal court. So I am no longer being sued. So that just lets you know the importance that people put on the CRB and the belief that we can stop the misconduct that is being, that they feel that they are undergoing. So it continues to show the need. We would also point out in the presentation last week that the Liberty Resources and the police department did. You could look at the number of cases that are generated just in the CRB's office and the ones that are generated just in the Office of Professional Standards. You can see that the CRB is still used typically on a higher basis, other than the internal Office of Professional Standards gets what's filed internally, and we don't get to see those cases. We only see the cases that are brought by the citizen. So that's the difference in the numbers. But you can see those cases that are generated just from the CRB's office being there.
Thanks for that. So I think we all have an understanding that the CRB's staffing and bandwidth isn't high enough to be able to fulfill everything we'd want it to do. I'm curious if there's a model out there. Is there a city where they've really bought into it and spent the money to do it, and that we can point to and say, here's what the impact would be?
So Rochester, New York, has created a citizens review board, and they have a hefty budget that also their legislators also got some funding with regard for them as well. So the Rochester budget is, it's actually a $5 million budget for them, which we know we won't be able to get $5 million just from the city. But again, I state that they had other parties to coordinate with the effort of.
Other parties, so they got funding from like the state.
They got funding from the state and federal government and things of that nature, more along the state. So that is what their budget is, and it will accommodate the hiring of 50 employees.
50.
So yes.
How long have they been in operation, and do they have
So-
proven outcomes that obviously this $5 million is?
So because they are so new, they were, it was, the voters voted on it in the past 2 elections. And so they have just only began to hire the appropriate staff. So they don't have all 50 employees. If you look on their website, I would encourage you to do that. Their executive director gets a salary of $72,000. Associate director of staff gets $51,000. They have a director of staff support and development. That's another $63,000. They have a director of information systems, which would kind of go with our, so they became an entity of kind of like within themselves, which would account for the need for that type of budget. But they are able to have 5 or 6 investigators, a director of investigations, a community engagement group that focuses on, like we talk about having monthly meetings in every quadrant of the city, or as we would like to say, every common council district of the city. They're able to do that because they have the necessary staff to focus on particular areas and the needs in those areas. And right now, currently, we have the 11-member board members that are volunteers, but trying to coordinate all of that within some of their schedules as they are still full-time employees. And again, these are volunteers. They have figured out a way to have staff to engage in this area. And so that's what's making the difference. When we look to other places like Albany, they are still working on their contract currently, and that was $500,000 for their fiscal year budget. So I do know that. And then the other big city is New York City, but I mean, come on, we know the difference between Syracuse and New York City, so we're not even gonna go there. In terms of,
Buffalo is recreating theirs right now.
yes, so we spoke before the Buffalo City Council during the pandemic, and they're trying to establish one. And so they're looking at ways to create one as well. So everybody sees the need because of what has gone on for decades, but has now just been intensified since George Floyd. And so we are trying to just get where we needed to be. So if we did allocate the funds for the additional staffing, that would make our budget $354,438 if we put in for all the positions that we need. I would like to say that given the salary range that we have for people, we have to have people that are trainable we are not going to get the skills that some other places will get. I know that we will continue to have FOIL requests for which I have to produce to the law department, and then they have to do that. We have discovery demands when there are lawsuits against the city that we have to provide to the law department, because it's all about providing an accurate depiction of the officer's complaint history. So we have to fulfill that kind of stuff. And then there was a new requirement that the city is supposed to self-report when an officer has 3 or more complaints in I think it's between a 5-year period or a 3-year period. So that will create additional work as well. And so when you put those type of constraints on just 2 people in the office full time, it does create a situation where people are leaving the office because of the amount of work that they're having to do for the salary. So we look at all of those factors as we come to you and ask you to please, consider our budget and the need for the office moving forward.
So are you mostly reactive to the complaints that come in, or do you do proactive work with the community like you proposed? If you could have somebody in each district going to connect with the community, what would that look like?
So not every time a person calls the office are they wanting to file a complaint. So they are often sometimes just trying to understand police policy and procedure. So then we will take that opportunity to do that. When we are out in the community at the different events, we are doing the same thing. So everything that people reach out to the office for isn't always a complaint. Sometimes it's just a better understanding. But if we had somebody that was dedicated to that, we could just show up at community, centers and do things of that nature. We could table at all types of events around the city. We have to kind of be strategic when we do that, because some events require money. They require a vendor fee and things of that nature, and we don't have the cost in the budget to always do that. And then when we go out for outreach, we don't have the outreach budget as many people do either to provide people with takeaways. And some people are not comfortable coming up to our table because they don't want people to know that they have concerns about the police. Some are, but some are not. So we want to be able to provide people with a private setting to come at their will. And so it's not in an open public thing, because we know that that's a deterrence for people. And we know that it takes a lot for people to file complaints with us. Some are, scared of retaliation. Some are scared of what it will look like in the community for them to be filing complaints, which is the reason why we don't release the names of complainants. And we fall under a strict confidentiality for those reasons, because it takes a lot for people to get there.
I think the other thing too with the complaints, one of the things that I've learned recently is that whenever anyone calls any city department and they want to file a complaint, whoever answers the phone hears complaint and sends them to us. So it's not necessarily even a police complaint. I know, Jen, I've sent a couple of people to you because they called about streetlights and other things, and somehow when the person answering the phone hears complaints, we get those calls too. So we do try and help those people. We don't want to just say, sorry, you called the wrong number. But, those are just other things that add into the day-to-day operations of the board.
Renee, let me ask you this. When you talked about the Rochester funding, the $5 million, so impressive for such a short time, right?
Yes.
So are you, we don't want to throw more work at you at this point, but are you able to research to write your own grants to maybe kind of complement your budget, or is that something the city needs to do?
So we have reached out and have tried to acquire grants, but that would be something I would need to do too. I would have to write the grant. We have been allocated $5,000 from the Department of Justice through the police department, but that's because they write the grant. And they have worked it in, so they say, so that it says to give $5,000 to us, but that's only for training and training related travel and things of that nature. So that's what we are utilizing for us to have an expert to come in and speak to us during our annual training day. But we don't have just discretionary funds that can be utilized to do these kind of things. So.
If you wanted, if you could apply to those state grants as well, and
Yes, and so we
Enhance your
kind of
budget.
asked, but we would have to go through, we asked for the grant department to look and see if there are any grants that are specifically for oversight. We have in the past. And so far, the Department of Justice grant with the police department has been the thing that we've received for the last 2 years. But again, it's only allocated for that particular use, so.
So yesterday we met, go
No,
ahead.
you-
We met with API, and they suggested that the department heads come to them with ideas and they kind of help them. So have you guys reached out to them yet?
Wasn't aware.
Okay,
Yeah.
because that was stated here yesterday that they don't just go out and seek projects, but they want the department heads to come to them and they can kind of help them. Because it seems like even with the data analysis position, you're gonna have to prove like some type of outcomes and goals or whatever, and it seems like that's a department that can help you. And if they have the capacity and they're in-house, then you might as well use them.
Okay.
And especially the grant writing team here at the city, I don't understand why they wouldn't be able to actually write the grant for you guys. Like you're still a
I think that I
department
would
in the
have to
city.
still just search it out and say, hey, have you considered this type of grant? And I mean, I think that, that's just the thing of knowing that what to look for and what to try to find us for. And it may not directly say oversight, but the ins and outs and how we can word it and frame it in a way that it works for us.
And what's his name? Nico? Yeah, reach out to Nico.
Okay,
'Cause that's what he said
Nico
yesterday.
Diaz.
okay.
Yes.
Just for context on that Rochester one, because they were very low funded before, and then the rationale was it's 5% of the police budget. So if Syracuse were 5% of the police budget, the CRB would be 2.8 million. If it were 1%, it would be 558,000, but Renette's at 214, so it's less than 0.5% that we're doing. But because it's so low, she is getting a 56% increase in the total cost this year, but it just shows how small it is, so. And from what I could tell, it seems like it's city funds, because it seemed controversial when they funded it.
Yes. So what is the standard out there is to get at least 1% of what the budget is that you oversee and to have the staffing of that as well. So when we look at a department that has 400, well, I think we're down to like 300 and something officers. So it would be 1% of that should be the amount of staff. Because if you think about it, if you receive that many complaints in a year, then that's the rationale. And to definitely have as much office staff as the department has in their staff. But yes, it is stated that it's at least 1%. So we are far lower than that currently. Thank you, Budget Director Rudd.
Go ahead.
No, I just want to make sure I, understand. You made this request to the administration, right, for,
We made the request, so so I reached out to our public safety chair and asked, can we have a
public
CR?
safety chair of the common council?
Yes.
Right.
And so I reached out to him and asked and said, hey, can we have a public safety committee meeting to discuss, the 4 new positions the CRB would like to propose and to discuss, the needs of the office. And I was advised that I should do as was stated last year, and that was to request to pick one position and to advocate for that position. And so I did that based upon what was instructed. We did put it in the budget initially when we did talk to the budget director and things of that nature, and we were looking at how we could do that. But yes, because that's what the instructions were.
Well, but, the administration decides the budget for each city department. You're a city department, so was there a request made for more money to the budget department in the city administration?
Renette requested 4 positions, and because the CRB is really a creature of the legislature, I asked the public safety chair what to put in. And
so-
in theory, he should be corralling with the other counselors. And so we kind of landed
It's just sort of an unusual way of doing things.
Yeah, we
speaking on 50
initially
years
do
of
that.
experience.
We put it in there, and then We put it in there before and it was denied before, and that was last year's budget. And then again, so we didn't have that scenario again. That's why myself and the budget director, Rudd, decided to figure out how was the best way to present this because of what happened the last time. So
I think in football, this is called a lateral, I believe. Is this what it's called? Okay, I understand.
no, I mean, we're trying to follow the rules as best as we know them.
I know, it seems like you're in a
But
gray area.
I'm always in like, okay, do I follow what every other city department does? Or do I follow because we're under the council? Which one do I do? And I have not appeared to do it right every year.
No, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I just wanted to see
Yeah.
procedurally how we're,
Yes,
okay. Thank you.
okay. Yeah, so we fall under the council, so then the council decides what we get.
All right, so let's
Yeah,
back
'cause
up a
in
little bit,
this
right?
case, it
So
was
Yes,
the council appoints the board members to the CRB, who in turn hires you, right?
Yes.
So that's where it's different, obviously, than a normal city department where the
Correct.
mayor hires the
Yes.
DPW chair, right?
Yes.
But ultimately, the budget document is created by the budget director who works for the mayor, right? So it is a uniquely weird situation.
yeah, and so that's the reason why we always have this limbo as to what's the appropriate way to handle our need for more budget and staffing because of how we fall, so.
And Raynette, so in your initial request to add additional staff members, can you repeat what they were? And then if you were to like prioritize which ones, can you give us in that order?
Yes, so we have consistently asked for a full-time investigator, and that salary still would range between that same one as the data analysis. So the investigator salary would have been a range, what they initially gave me was 38,602 to 40,000 was the range, which would get us an investigator with no skill sets.
If we did that, does that mean you would reduce Freeland? I mean, would that be in lieu of it, or would it be
No,
in
we
addition?
could not, we would not, it would in lieu at some point in time, but it couldn't be initially until we got the investigator up to speed as to where we would, but that would be able to, yes.
So that means you would have to train this person.
Yes, I would have to train the person fully to understand the complaints that the CRB receives and the mechanism for review of those complaints and all of that kind of stuff. So we would have to do it that way. And then we asked for a community engagement specialist, and that salary range before was 38,642. But in order to really get somebody, we would need to be paying in that $47,000 range because given the cost of living in the city of Syracuse and things of that nature, it is necessary to be able to afford somebody not to still live with their parent and work. So that person would assist the board with community engagement to build community awareness of the functions of the CRB and improve community relations. It would create programming and presentations similar to what do you do when you're interacting with the police that we've had in the community, and engage with the community and facilitate contracts with local agencies. So anytime that we do the Westcott Cultural Festival, if we do anything of that nature, it would be that person that they would contact. And if, say the school district wanted us to come in and do a presentation to, some students, they would coordinate with that. But right now, it's myself calling these places and coordinating, and then coordinating with the board schedule and things of that nature in order to take care of this.
So then if you, I'm sorry.
Nope,
If
go
you
ahead.
have a community engagement specialist, then you would need budget to go out in the community and
Yes.
do the engagement.
So right now, the outreach budget for which we have right now, it's like $400 which doesn't really, it's actually $200 for outreach materials. We have been able to squeeze $300 into the budget in order to get the board some T-shirts so that when we go out there, we look uniform. So we've tried to do that in order to show a collective effort with that. And then the next one would have been the policy analysis. And again, that one is going to conduct research into the police department's policies, compare SPD's policies with IACP, which is the National Association for Chief of Police, and other law enforcement agencies. They're going to look at legal opinions and assist with the drafting of recommendations, and this is all the stuff that I do currently. So all the positions that we are asking for are part of my job description currently, but we also have to do the day-to-day operations of the CRB, so I also pay all the bills that come into the CRB. I also have to attend any sort of committee meetings that we're talking about, so these people would be able to allocate those things, so then I can focus on reviewing investigations that are completed by the private investigator, and also the other day-to-day operations that need to be, because we have to be out in the community and be the face for the CRB. So that would in turn be, I still go to trainings that need to be conducted and do all interviews with the press if I decide to do an interview.
And what's the salary range for that position?
That salary range, it still maintains to be the same as the, so they had the low end was 38,000 to 40,000, or putting it up at the same place where the data analysis was, which was the 47 to 55.
But that's called a program analyst. It's
a policy analyst. Yes. So it was if we do as Councilor Green stated, put it into my wish list above importance, it would be the full-time investigator, then it would be the data analysis, community engagement specialist, and then the policy analysis.
And Renette, you have that documented, how many, I mean, with phone calls, requests, all that stuff?
Yeah, I could.
If we all got to see that, I think.
Yeah, so I could tell you the amount of time that I spend on responding to FOIL requests, which would, the data analysis would help with that. And what I do for discovery demands and how that kind of stuff. And, you know, sometimes I could be spending a week on just a discovery demand or a FOIL request.
Because the council obviously acts on all these legal issues that happen with the police department. I imagine all your reports are foiled as part of that.
Yes, yep. So anytime that there is a lawsuit and there is a discovery demand, and they are asking for CRB records from 1993 to present, I have to provide that. And we are needing to scan those documents. And the AG's office investigation into the police department, we had to provide them with documents. Any sort of request that is police related, the CRB office is included, and it's still me reviewing all of that to get it out.
And obviously that not only would serve not only the people that are requesting it, who might be suing the city, but it might protect the city in the long run in as much as it might.
Absolutely.
Maybe the case is invalid too.
Yes, so because whenever there is a lawsuit, they are looking to see whether or not the person filed a complaint with the CRB, and also looking at the outcome of the CRB's investigation, hearing, or so. So everything kind of circles back around. It was my understanding that the law department was also going to be asking for a paralegal to kind of handle these type of requests as well. So their office sees the need for an additional paralegal to do that type of work, because it's just so much at times. And the turnaround time for FOIL requests is very quick. And sometimes I'm quite sure I might be delaying it, so.
So I think Councilor Paniagua asked this question, but how will this impact? I know you gave us the numbers of the outreach budgets, 200 and beyond, but how do you see that being impacted if you get these additional staff? How do those adjust as well?
So how it impacts in terms of the community or in terms of the number itself?
Rent, outreach materials,
So
paperwork.
yeah, so we anticipate that when that person is hired, we will be able to see that we would have more reach into the community. And so the number the $300 may go up to $5. The $200, you know what I mean, may go up another $300 because you have to now have material when you go out there.
Not just the materials. Some of these events you need to pay to be there.
Absolutely. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the cheapest event that we go to was like $100, and we don't typically go to any more than
Half
that.
of your budget right now.
Yeah, so it's like we have,
Sometimes we beg and they let us in for free,
Okay.
but
yeah,
doesn't happen all the time.
yeah, so, or we just show up in the crowd and just pass out materials without having a table. So we kind of do that as well, but we try to do as best as we can. And if it's a free event, we're there to march with people and things of that nature to show our concern. But definitely the need for more funding is where we are. So.
I mean, and a quick question. I'm trying to remember the statistic just off the top of my head that how many of the cases that you take on are found to be without merit, that you actually favor inside of the officer in the case?
So we had 15 hearings last year. And out of those 15 hearings, we sustained findings on 7 cases. So think about it as that. It's usually less than half. Body worn camera, the officers, so since Chief Buckner has been here and since we have created this better relationship with the department, we now receive the body worn camera footage when it is worn by an officer, which is we are able to then take out the he said, she said that takes place. We are also now able to listen to the interviews of the officers, which is now being recorded, which wasn't before. And we would rely on the Office of Professional Standards to type up what was said by the officer, but now we actually get to review that. But I would probably say, like, to the board members, all the additional stuff that we are able to receive now does put way more time on their end to review these cases, because now we may have 5 body worn camera footages. Now we may have 5 interviews of officers. So I would like to say that, we continue to thank the board members that are volunteers who spend the time to review this, because sometimes that could take maybe, 2 or 3 days for them to review cases before our, meeting. And they come up with questions and we have a lively discussion on the cases. But that is because we take this seriously, and we're not, we're looking to see what happened on both ends. And sometimes, the reaction that we're seeing by the complainant in the interaction just doesn't violate policy. Right. It doesn't mean that misconduct didn't occur. It just means that it wasn't a violation of police policy. It wasn't technically against policy. The number one complaint that we get is demeanor. And so we need to be able to, assist the public with understanding the policies and procedures when the police go to a scene. And things of that nature, but we can't do that as much as we can unless somebody reaches out, because our reach is only so far based upon the people.
Absolutely. Well, to clarify, you said the cases that actually went to trial. I was referring more to complaints that come in versus those that end up in officers being found of wrongdoing. You know what I mean? Like overall of all the complaints that come in.
We kind of go with it. If you get, we say about 80% of the cases that we get, complaints that we get, do not end up going to a hearing. So,
that was the information I was looking for.
Then of those, it would be about half that end up being founded. So
but of that doesn't mean that in there we haven't saw a policy and training recommendation that we can see. So just because it doesn't go to a hearing and an officer is not given discipline, it doesn't mean that it's not a teachable moment, as they would say, to say, in the future, want this, an interaction would be better this way. So it still always helps, even when they don't go to hearings and even when it's not a sustained finding, as a teachable moment, because if not, that officer would have never been spoken to about their interaction. And again, when we talk about demeanor, the language that's used, the, body language, all of that kind of stuff. I mean, the department is seeing a lot more than what was being seen before, because it was a he said, she said.
Yes, absolutely. No, I appreciate that.
And I think the other thing too, Councilor Driscoll, is the last year or so, we've really been playing a lot of catch-up. And so when you get cases from 2017, 2018, that are beyond the scope of the time frame for discipline, we may not go to a hearing because of that time frame and discipline not being an option. But we still review those cases as thoroughly as we do a case that was from yesterday.
Yep.
And so, going on with what Raynette said, we might make a recommendation to the chief that says, had we gotten this in a timely manner,
This person would
there
have been
there
disciplined.
probably would have been discipline on this, and maybe you could have a talk
Be a
with that person
recommendation,
anyway,
yeah.
So we do that as well.
And the department is also pointing out, when those cases happen, that if it was within the 18 months, that this would have been the discipline. And we also need to point out that we're still referring cases to the DA's office. As the police department stated, they had a mass exodus. So some of those complaints from those officers who have exited are still on CRB's radars. So if in fact that is the case and the person is no longer with the department, we still have the ability to refer it to the DA's office. So we are looking at that as well. And last year we did refer a case to the DA's office. We have one to refer now, things of that nature. So we are still looking at it as intense as we would even without that, because that's what our duty is.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so with that being said, thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you to the board members for volunteering your time. And thank you to the counselors.
Thank you
And
so
this
much.
meeting is adjourned, and we have another one coming up at 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What's that?